Hey guys, history lesson 45. This is our final history lesson. Okay? Our last one. So we're going to talk a bit today about the American experiment. Did it work? What does the future look like, and what our response as Christians should be to, or how should we live in our country? What kind of citizens should we be, right? Okay. And also, you want to make sure you watch this entire video for sure. I mean, obviously, you should always watch the entire video, but after the lesson, I'm going to do some review for the final exam on Monday. All right. So, final exam Monday. Make sure you watch this entire lesson before you try to take that exam. Okay. Okay, so lesson 45, the American experiment. So we talked about, throughout the year how America is an idea. Okay, it was based on an idea that freedom is better than tyranny. That when you give people the option of choosing and making decisions, when you have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, that's much better than giving power to one man or just a few. That was the idea behind the experiment. Now, did it work? Because when the founding fathers started the country, that was their big question. Is this going to work? Or is it just going to disintegrate into nothing? Or is it actually going to be successful? And I would say that America has been successful beyond the wildest dreams of the founding fathers in many ways. So, America, though not perfect, all right? It's not that we've always been perfect. We've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I mean, we had a civil war, for goodness sake, right? We tolerated slavery for a certain amount of time. Serious racial problems. We were very cruel to the Indians, to the Native Americans. Eugenics. You just go down the list. And of course today, abortion and things like that. So it's not that we've been perfect. We've been far from perfect. You can look at all kinds of mistakes America has made, right? And there's been times when our leaders have not followed the principles of the founding fathers, when they've enacted legislation that is not consistent with what the founding fathers wanted, or what their ideas were for a free country. So we've been far from perfect. We've veered from the path at times. But overall, I would say America, though not perfect, has been a bastion of freedom and opportunity. People want to come to the United States, right? I mean, a lot of people. Why do we have an illegal immigration problem? Why are people swimming across the river on our southern border to try to get to America? It's because they want to be here, because there is opportunity here. Now, in Canada, they have similar opportunity, so they're not rushing across the Canadian border to get down here because they have a similar country there, right? But other countries who are not as well off, there are a lot of people that would love to come to America and be here, okay? So, where people talk about the wall that Trump is building down there, and some people compare it to the wall in Berlin, but it's actually not a good comparison at all. It's not comparing apples to apples. Whether you're for the wall or not, for Trump's wall or not, it's just not a good comparison. I mean, think about it. We're talking about building a wall to keep people out because people want to come. People are desperate to come to the United States. So we're talking about building a wall to keep people out. The wall around East Berlin, the Berlin Wall, was meant to keep people in. because people didn't want to be there. They didn't want to be under the communist Soviet Union dictatorship. They wanted freedom, so they were trying to get into West Berlin to get out. Right? So we don't have to build a wall to keep people in America. We're not trying. We don't have to desperately keep people here. Now, there's some people that leave. Some people don't like it, and they leave. But we don't have people mass exoduses of people running away because they don't like it. It's a land of opportunity, right? Okay? And throughout the history of America, we've had a strong Christian influence. Strong. Lots of Christians, lots of churches, lots of missions. Thousands of missionaries, maybe millions. I have no idea how many have come from America and gone into other countries to spread the gospel. Okay? America has been a place that has sent out many, many, many missionaries. Right? There's many faith-based programs, social programs based in America. Relief programs. So Franklin Graham has Samaritan's Purse. They go around the world and they help people who are poor. They rebuild places where there's earthquakes, and there's some Mennonite organizations to do. There's all kinds of organizations. Tons of faith-based programs doing all kinds of good work that are based in America. Not all faith-based programs are based in America. Obviously, there's a lot in other countries, but there's a lot that come out of America. Okay? So the future, what does the future look like? What are we staying the course? Are we staying faithful to the original idea that the founding fathers put forward? Well, it seems like the Christian influence is waning. It seems that Christians are having less and less of a voice in our country. It seems like there's just not, that there's becoming a stronger and stronger opposition to Christianity in our country. There's still a lot of Christians. Still a lot of Christians in America. A lot of churches. But it would seem like maybe that the Christian influence is starting to decline. And there's many in our country that have lost confidence in the principles of our founding fathers. And that's unfortunate, because the founding fathers were brilliant men. And I think a lot of, we talked in logic class about chronological snobbery. There's a lot of people in our day that think that we know better than they did. That those people back in the 1700s, they were dumb. They just weren't enlightened. And they were hypocrites and all this stuff. And, they tolerated slavery. Therefore, they must be, we can't trust them about anything they did or said. Again, just classic chronological snobbery. There's a pretty strong movement in our country to undermine the principles of the founding fathers and the Constitution. And that's sad. However, there still is a lot of good in America, right? I mean, there's still a lot of good things. I mean, what other country would you want to live in? And Canada, maybe, right? I mean, I'd love to live in Canada, but it's not so much because the government is better. I think that our government is slightly better than theirs. I just like Canada. I like the geography. I have friends up there and that kind of thing. But besides that, where else would you want to live? I mean, maybe there's another country somewhere that would be cool to live in. But there's probably not that many. America has a lot of opportunity and a lot of good things going on. There's still a lot of good. And lastly, under that point, there's always hope, right? Our country has faced difficult times before. I mean, we went through a civil war. We went through World War I, World War II. We've faced other times when things have not been good. So, I know there's a lot of doom and gloomers out there saying, America is just about finished and, we're soon going to witness the demise of our country and all of that. And, that could be true. I don't know. But there's always hope, right? One of my favorite scenes in my favorite movie, The Lord of the Rings, the second movie in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, The Two Towers, has this scene, where the people of Rohan are holed up in this fortress called Helm's Deep, and there's not very many of them, and the orcs are coming from Isengard to attack them, and there's thousands and thousands of them on their way. And there's no way we can defend ourselves. There's no way we can do this. And so they round up all of the men, all the able-bodied men, and even young boys to get ready to fight this battle against the orcs. And anyway, they're getting ready to. They're just waiting. They're just waiting. And Aragorn, the hero of the story, he's sitting there waiting for the battle and just trying to keep his morale up. And he sees this little boy who is getting his armor on and getting ready to fight, and he's got a sword, and he's just got this scared look on his face. So Aragorn calls him over, and he asks him what his name is. And the boy says, my name is Haleth, son of Hama, my lord. And then he says, the men are saying that we will not live out the night. They say there is no hope. And then Aragorn takes his sword from him and swings it around a little while, and then he gives it back to him, and he says, this is a good sword, Haleth, son of Hama. And then he puts both his hands on his shoulders and he says, there's always hope. Anyway, cool story, right? Cool story. Come on. Cool story. Anyway, there's always hope. Okay? As Christians, we don't need to be pessimistic. We don't need to sit around worrying about what's going to happen to America. We have hope. Okay? And that leads us to the next part, which is, what is a Christian's response to this whole thing? Christian's response. So, how do we respond? What should our attitude be toward this country, where we've come from, what we've been through, and the direction that we're headed? So, as Christians, I think we should care. We should care about justice. We should care about the direction our country goes. We should be concerned about it, right? And we should stand up for what is right and what is true. We should fight for what is good and right and just and true. However, our hope is not in the USA. We're not like those guys, America, America. We're not like that. We like a lot of what America stands for, but our hope is in a different kingdom. But we should pray for our country. We should be kind. We should be the kind of citizens that show that we value what is right and good and true and just. The thing is, God doesn't need the U.S. He doesn't need it. I think that sometimes our attitude, if the United States crumbles, what are we going to do? What about all these churches and missionaries, and what's going to happen, right? God doesn't need the United States. He can use whoever he wants, however he wants to use them. But it doesn't negate our responsibility as citizens to live in a way that pleases God and contributes to human flourishing. Okay? We want to make the world a better place. We want to be a part of making this country as good as we can be a part of making it, right? So don't be a part of the problem. Be a part of the solution. So what JFK said, right? Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So there's this verse from the Old Testament that says, He has told you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. So I may be sort of pulling this verse out of context a little bit, but I think it helps us understand what we should be doing as Christians. Okay? Do justly. I'm using the King James Version here. Love mercy. Walk humbly with God. Okay, so those are three things. That's kind of those three things encapsulate a lot of what it is to be a good citizen. Right? Do what is just. Love what is just. Fight for what is just. Love mercy. If somebody is truly repentant, somebody is sorry, be merciful. Right? Walk humbly with God. Just walk with God. Follow God. Be a godly person. That's how you're going to be a good citizen. Okay? And then there's other verses in the New Testament that tell us to pray. We should pray regularly for our country. We should pray for our leaders. We should pray for our president. We should pray for their salvation, right? Pray that they would be wise. Pray that they would be courageous. Pray that they would do the right thing. We should obey them as much as we are able. Okay? So we shouldn't be lawbreakers. We shouldn't be out there, just blasting the speed limit all to pieces. Okay? We shouldn't be cheating on our taxes. We shouldn't be doing things that show that we're, crooks deep down inside. We should be the best law keepers we can possibly be. Now, again, there may be a time in the future when we have to disobey the government. I don't know. There are some people that think that we should disobey during the coronavirus and just go to church. And there are actually some Christians that have done that. I don't think we're at that point. Now, if the government would keep us from going to church for a very long time, I think maybe that there would be a time when we should say, sorry, but we have to go back to church. And the Bible says to not neglect the assembling of yourselves together, right? And if the government would put a long-term ban on meeting together, we might have to disobey that. I honestly think that. I don't think that's going to happen, but there may be a time in the future when we have to disobey the government because we're obeying God instead. And just be the best citizen you can possibly be. Okay? Be the best citizen you can possibly be. So again, our hope is not in our country. Our hope is in King Jesus. Okay? We are part of an eternal kingdom. But while we're here, let's be good citizens. Alright, well, that's American history class for the year 2019, 2020. Hope you guys learned a lot. Hope you enjoyed it. Alright, we're going to do some review for the final exam. Got it? Let's go through this quickly. This test isn't going to be terribly long, but I will say this. There's going to be quite a bit of fill in the blank. So you want to pay close attention and make sure you know the things that I'm talking about today, okay? Alright, so what is history? What is history? A record of what happened. Okay? So you probably want to follow along in your notes to get these right. History is a record of what happened. What are some important reasons to learn history? Do you remember that? Make sure you know some of the important reasons that we should learn history. Okay? Make sure you know these two lines from the Declaration of Independence. Okay, these two lines, make sure you know them well. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. But among these are what? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And this one as well. Know this one as well. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our what? Lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. Do you know the two things? We talked about two qualities that before he was president even, that George Washington had. Two qualities that set him apart as a leader. What were those two qualities? Make sure you know them, okay? Know those two qualities that set George Washington apart as a leader. What were some of the reasons for the Constitution? Why did the United States make a Constitution and write it down? Okay, what were those reasons? There's two very important amendments to the Constitution. Number 1 and number 2. I mean, the others are important as well, but those two are kind of the two that maybe stand out quite a bit. What are the two things that are guaranteed in the First and Second Amendments to the Constitution? Make sure you know the structure of our government, okay? The different branches. What branch makes the laws? Which one is it? What branch makes the laws, okay? Which branch of our government makes the laws? There's 3 branches: executive, legislative, judicial, okay? Which one of those makes the laws? It's the legislative, okay? The legislative body, that's Congress, Senate, and the House of Representatives. They make the laws because that's the representation. The congressmen and the senators come from the states, and they meet in Washington as legislative bodies, and they're the ones that make the laws. Okay? Our senators, our congressmen, they're the ones that make the laws. So the branch of our government that makes the laws is the legislative branch. Make sure you know that. Okay? What branch of our government interprets the laws? Okay, again, judicial, executive, or legislative. Which one? We know it's not legislative because they're the one that makes the laws. Who interprets the laws? Now think about which one of those words most sounds like somebody who's going to interpret the law. Executive branch? Legislative branch? No, we already know they make the laws. Judicial? Judicial, that's, judge. That's where we get our word judge from. So judicial and judges go together. Judges interpret the laws. Okay? The judicial branch interprets the laws. Each state gets to send representation to the Senate, right? They get to send senators to the Senate. How many senators do they send to the Senate? How many senators does each state get? 2. Okay? Now, congressmen, that's based on the population. Every state sends 2 senators. All right? Let's see. Senators serve how many year terms? How many years are the senators in office for a term? Now, they can win re-election as many times as they want, but how many years is their term? 6 years. Okay, 6 years. How about the congressman? How many years does a congressman serve? 2 years. All right. Again, they can win re-election as often as they want, but their term only lasts for 2 years. All right. How many justices sit on the Supreme Court? How many justices? 9. 9 justices. Okay. How long do the justices serve? What is their term? It's a lifetime appointment, right? So as long as they live or want to serve. They can resign if they want. They can step down, which has happened. But it's a lifetime appointment. Once they're appointed to the Supreme Court, they can stay there till they die. All right. What branch? So what branch is the Supreme Court in? What branch of government? Judicial, executive, or legislative? Okay, again, it's a court, right? Supreme Court. So think judges. So it's in the judicial branch. What branch are the senators and the congressmen in? They are in the legislative branch, the ones that make the laws. Okay. What branch is the president and the vice president? The executive. Okay, think of executive. They're the top dogs, right? The executive of a company. He's like the grand poobah of the whole thing, right? He's the man. He's the leader. So executive branch, president. The president is in the executive branch. Think of it that way. All right. What else? Who were the guys that led an expedition to explore the Louisiana Purchase? Okay, remember that? They headed out up through the Northwest. They were saved by an Indian guy named Sacagawea. Sacagawea, Sacagawea, however you want to say it. Okay, she saved them, right? She went along and guided them, protected their stuff. This trip greatly expanded knowledge of the West. Who led the trip? Lewis and Clark. Fantastic job. Who did the United States constantly make treaties with and then break the treaties as people continually moved west? Who did they break the treaties with? The Indians or Native Americans, right? Okay. Can you give me some famous mountain men? Famous mountain men. Let's see. Kit Carson. Jeremiah Johnson. Trying to think of some others. Jim Bridger, I think. Well, I don't know if we had him or not. Do we have him? Somebody, James Beckworth, I think was another one. Yeah. So know the names of some famous mountain guys. Mountain dudes. Because they were dudes. They were dudes, right? What was the big issue that separated the North and the South and led to the Civil War? The big thing that separated the North and the South and led to the Civil War? Slavery. Well done. Should have. Of course you knew that one, right? So Lincoln made this comment that kind of summarized his attitude toward the South after the Civil War. What was the comment? Those guys are a bunch of rebellious idiots? No. What was the comment? Malice toward none, with charity for all. Okay? That was Lincoln's attitude, and that was what really, his attitude really helped keep our country from fragmenting after the Civil War. Let's see. Can you name some things that happened or some inventions that happened in the 1990s and first decade of the 2000s? So the 90s are the double zeros. 90s are double O's. What were some things that were invented? iPhone, right? Amazon, eBay, text messaging. We had some bad things happen, like the Columbine school shooting, a huge, massive tsunami in Southeast Asia. Of course, we had the school shooting in Columbine, Colorado. We had Y2K, which was really scary, but turned out to be nothing. 9/11. Okay, those are things that happened or inventions that took place in the 90s and double zeros, double O's. Can you tell me, make sure you know about boom towns in the West. What characterized boom towns in the West? Remember, they would move into an area because somebody found gold or silver or some kind of precious metal, and people would just flock in there, build up these, you'd have thousands of people just almost overnight, and it was just a lot of chaos, lawlessness, and vigilante justice, and crazy stuff happening, right? In the boom towns. So make sure you know about boom towns and what characterized boom towns. They would boom up, and then sometimes if the source of gold or silver or whatever kind of petered out, then they would go away, and suddenly this huge town would turn into almost nothing. So it would grow up really fast, and then it would crash really fast, right? So tell me what you know about that. Tell me what you know about the 20s, the Roaring 20s. Remember those days? I mean, you don't remember them, but remember talking about them? What happened during the Roaring 20s? Remember, it was a time when there was a lot of kind of rebellion against authority, rebellion against the way things were, flappers, women in short skirts smoking cigarettes, drinking beer, jazz music, just a lot of pursuit of sensuality and pleasure, that kind of thing, in the Roaring 20s. And the 1960s, what can you tell me about that? Remember that now? The 1960s were kind of like the 20s, but on steroids, right? And when I say that, that's kind of a pun because it's not a very funny pun, because it's actually when drugs started to come in. People were majorly rebelling against authority. And you had rock music, alcohol, drugs, sexual promiscuity, hippies, and just the whole, 1960s. That's what it was like. How about the Great Depression? What can you tell me about the Great Depression? Know about the Great Depression. What caused it? Overspending, to people, going into debt too much. There's just a variety of things. Factories overproducing products, and there not being enough people to buy the products that are being produced by the factories. Things like that, and how long it lasted, how it ended. So know about the Great Depression. Let's see. Know about Ronald Reagan. Can you give me some facts about Ronald Reagan? All right. What do you know about Ronnie Reagan? What was his nickname? He was the Teflon president, right? There was an attempted assassination made. He was shot by a dude that was trying to impress a girl. He was trying to impress an actor, right? He wanted to marry her. And he thought, I know how I can impress her. I'll go shoot the president, right? That's what he thought. He was deranged, had some issues there. Elevator didn't quite reach the top story, or something was going on. But anyway, Ronald Reagan was shot. He survived, and some other things about him. What did he do? He was instrumental in ending the Cold War. He was very good at winning the hearts of the people. He was a likable man. He was funny. He made friends with his opponents. Anyway, make sure you know about Ronnie Reagan. 9/11. What do you know about 9/11? Now, I didn't do a lecture on 9/11, and we didn't do any notes, but you watched a documentary. Okay? So make sure you just remember something about that. Okay? I think you probably remember something. If you haven't watched that, you really need to, because that, it gives you a lot of information about what took place that day. Okay? What do you know about, or that we learned at least in class, about Donald J. Trump? What do you know about it? What is significant about it? Remember, we talked about that, right? So make sure you know those things. Okay? Sounds good. Plan to take the test on Monday, and then you will officially be done with history class for this year, as long as you passed and you're caught up. Maybe some of you will still be doing catch-up work after that. Maybe. Anyway, that's all I got. Have a fantastic day.